Namaste, aloha. My name is Janapati Das, and we are going to be reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is today. Please accept my respectful obeisances. Thank you for tuning in. I'd like to take this opportunity to glorify my spiritual master, Jagaguru Siddhaswarapananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, and ask for his mercy upon me. And to my spiritual grandfather, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, I offer my gratitude and thanks for bringing us the message of the Bhagavad Gita. We will be continuing through chapter 5 today. And to start off, we're going to chant Krishna's name. So please take the opportunity with me to chant. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gaurakaruna Sarupaya Radha Krishna State. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Pristayate Vaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Bhakta Vrinda Vaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Bhakta Vrinda Hari Gaur Nitai Gaur Nitai Gaur Haribo, Nitai Gaur. Krishna, Haribol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. Have my spiritual master open my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So we are reading from the Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. So a lot has been talked about here. And we are continuing. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Text 15. Nadet kasyachit papam nachaiva sukrityam avibuhu aganae navritam nakananam tenamuyanti jantavaha. Never adete accepts kasyachit anyone's papan sin nor cha also eva certainly sukrityam pious activities vibhuhu the Supreme Lord aganena by ignorance avrityam covered gananam knowledge tena by that muyanti bewildered jantavaha the living entities. Translation, text 15. So let me read the verse before, because the embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. Text 15. Nor does the Supreme Spirit assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. So, very poignant. What has been explained is that the things that go on in the material body and mind do not have anything to do, because we have been reading from text 8 and 9 that talks about a person in divine consciousness, although doing so many different kinds of activities, is not engaged with the objects. They are just utilizing them in the service of Krishna. So the Supreme Spirit Krishna does not also assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. So they are not responsible. Krishna is not responsible for the karmic reactions, or Krishna is not affected in any way by karmic reactions. But the embodied living beings are bewildered because they are ignorant, which covers their real knowledge, as we have explained already. This knowledge of nescience, which actually keeps people in bodily consciousness and covered up. Purport: the Sanskrit word vibhu means the Lord, Supreme Lord, who is full of unlimited knowledge, riches, strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation. So the mystic opulences of Krishna. Krishna has all 6 opulences in full. Living beings, embodied living beings, may have some knowledge, a certain amount of knowledge. They might be great scientists and whatnot, but they're not very beautiful or renounced. They may have some of these things, some riches. You have your Donald Trumps and your Jeff Bezoses and, these billionaires and trillionaires. They have riches and some strength. Maybe they're powerful people. But Krishna actually has knowledge, riches, wealth, strength, fame, and beauty, and renunciation completely in full. And that's what the word vibhu means. It's another name of Krishna. I almost named my daughter Viva. And this is what this means. Krishna has, of course, many, many names, and this is one of the names. And we've talked about some of the names of Krishna that refer to certain kinds of aspects of, in this case, it has to do with God having all six opulences in full, complete, like in the Sri Ishopanishad. The invocation says that the complete unit is complete in itself. So, and we learn this word yajna, right, which is Krishna is the master of all sacrifices. So yajna is another name. And so if you can see in different traditions there are names of God that evoke certain kinds of qualities and whatnot. So the word Shanti, for example, means one who gives peace by being surrendered to, one who is the source of peace. In fact, the word Islam originally means or Muslim means one who attains ultimate peace because of surrendering to God. So the Sanskrit word Vibhu means the Supreme Lord who is full in unlimited knowledge, riches, strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation. He is always satisfied in himself, undisturbed by sinful or pious activities. So the things that living entities engage in, God is not involved in that. He's not receiving any of the reactions. He is not responsible. We are responsible for ourselves. He's indirectly responsible for the effects. He does not create a particular situation for any living entity, but the living entity, bewildered by ignorance, desires to be put into certain conditions of life. Thereby, his chain of action and reaction begins. So that's a very important point. Why does God, the ultimate good, allow bad things to happen to people? It's explained right here. This is the atheist decree. It's a philosophical religious question that's brought forth by atheists over and over and over again. It's such a, when we talk about poor fund of knowledge, it's a stupid question. But, we have an answer for it. That God is not responsible for but rather gives the living entity out of love free will to do as he wishes at his own peril. So, he tries to educate and explain, but the living entity has to walk on their own 2 feet and make a decision in their life. They're responsible. We're responsible. Just like as in a human form of life, where we have our responsibilities, and when you're a child, you have to you're taught these responsibilities, but ultimately when you become an adult, you have to make your decisions about how you're going to walk in the world. That's on so that if you do something stupid, you can only blame yourself, although people try to blame other people all the time. So the living entity puts himself, desires to be put into certain conditions of life. He wishes to engage in certain kind of material gratification that will put him into a chain of action and reaction. A living entity is by superior nature full of knowledge. Nevertheless, he is prone to be influenced by ignorance due to his limited power. The Lord is omnipotent, but the living entity is not. The Lord is Vibhu, or omniscient, but the living entity is Anu, or atomic. Because he is a living soul, he has the capacity to desire by his free will. Such desire is fulfilled only by the omnipotent Lord. And so, when the living entity is bewildered in his desires, the Lord allows him to fulfill those desires, but the Lord is never responsible for the actions and the reactions of the particular situation which may be desired. It's kind of like, you want to go down that way, this is what's going to happen, but you'll find out. Being in a bewildered condition, therefore, the embodied soul identifies himself with the circumstantial material body and becomes subjected to the temporary misery and happiness of life. The Lord is the constant companion of the living entity as Paramama, the supersoul, and therefore he can understand the desires of the individual soul as one can smell the flavor of a flower by being near it. Desire is a subtle form of conditioning of the living entity. The Lord fulfills his desire as he deserves. Man proposes and God disposes. So there is some definite reality that God is the order supplier of our, the things that we want. God will provide us, but we should not treat God as an order supplier. We should ultimately give our life in love and service to Krishna, because this is our natural state. This is the only way that we will find true happiness and satisfaction. The individual is not, therefore, omnipotent in fulfilling his desires. Once again, the living entity is not really attached to the material things that go on, but all he has really is the desire. He has no way of creating. Things may happen because of his karmic reaction, but that is the mercy of Krishna. Krishna provides. Krishna disposes what man proposes. The individual is not therefore omnipotent in fulfilling his desires. The Lord, however, can fulfill all desires. But that is an illusion. Krishna, the living entity, believes that if I desire these things, I can fulfill these things. And then when I can't fulfill them, I get very angry. But it's still believed that I can somehow or another fulfill these desires. The Lord, however, can fulfill all desires, and the Lord, being neutral to everyone, does not interfere with the desires of the minute individual living entities. However, when one desires Krishna, the Lord takes special care and encourages one to desire in such a way that one can attain to him and be eternally happy. That's why it's said that if you take one step towards God, God will take 1,000,000 steps towards you. So, because Krishna's very eager for us to come back to him. He's the bird on the branch waiting for the other bird to turn around from his eating of the material fruit and, come back with me. Come back with me. I love you. I care about you. And you can be happy with me. Love me. However, when one desires the Lord, takes special care and encourages one to desire in such a way that one can attain to him and be eternally happy. The Vedic hymn therefore declares that Shayu Hyavyaiva Sadhu Karma Karayati Stabhyame Byo Lokebya Unini Shate Eshayu Eva Sadhu Karma Karayati Yamajo Ninishate Agno Tayat Chantur Anisho Yam Atmana Sukha Dukayo Ishvara Prerito Gachet Svarkam Vashvaparam Evacha. The Lord engages the living entity in pious activities so that he may be elevated. The Lord engages him in impious activities so that he may go to hell. The living entity is completely dependent in his distress and happiness. By the will of the Supreme, he can go to heaven or hell, as a cloud is driven by the air. Therefore, the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. Consequently, although he is constitutionally eternal, blissful, and cognizant, due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his constitutional position of service to the Lord and is thus entrapped by nescience. And under the spell of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. They get, so God is just providing what he wants. He knows that it's not gonna satisfy him. It'll make him frustrated and angry. But when bad things happen to the living entity, then it's God's fault, because God should have made me happy. The Vedanta Sutras also confirm this. Vaishamya narigyarne na shapek shatvat satata hi darshayati. The Lord neither hates nor likes anyone, although he appears to. Text 16. Ganena tu tadagananam yesham nashitam atmana tesham adityavaj prakashayati tatparam ganayana by knowledge to but that agananam nescience yesham of those nashitam is destroyed atmana the living entity tesham of their adityavat like the rising sun gananam knowledge Prakashayati discloses Tatparam in Krishna consciousness. Translation: when, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So beautiful. Let me read that again. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. Yeah. It's also said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when one has the sun in one's eyes, there is no darkness in the eyes. Just like the sadhu who appears and enlightens us with knowledge, the culture of knowledge comes with us like the sun, Krishna. And this knowledge, by receiving this knowledge in a disciplic lineage from the spiritual master, we're receiving it in a descending fashion. It lights up everything, all the darkness that we've experienced in the material world, our ignorance and lack of understanding of who we are and what the purpose of our life is. Very wonderful purport. Those who have forgotten Krishna must certainly be bewildered, but those who are in Krishna consciousness are not bewildered at all. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Gananam Plavena Ganagnihi Sarva Karmani and Nahi Ganena Sajalasham. Knowledge is always highly esteemed. Absolute knowledge, right? Very valuable. And what is that knowledge? Perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders unto Krishna, as said in the 7th chapter, 19th verse. Bahunam Janamanam Ante Ganavan Mam Prapatyate. After passing through many, many births, when one perfect in knowledge surrenders unto Krishna, or when one attains Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to them, as the sun reveals everything in the daytime. The living entity is bewildered in so many ways. For instance, when he thinks himself God unceremoniously, he actually falls into the last snare of nescience. So we have transcendentalists who know that they're not the body, they know they're not the mind, they know that they're spiritual, but they come to the conclusion that they, instead of being the servant of God, that they actually are God. They're almost there, and then the last catch of Maya Devi. You're God. I'm God. I'm God. And I can instruct you. You can be my disciples and worship me on my altar, on the altar, and on my Vyasasan. And if a living entity is God, then how can he become bewildered by nescience? That is the main question about impersonalism. Does God become bewildered by nescience? Does God ever become bewildered? No, God never becomes bewildered. And even in this, God is the greatest. God is the source of all things. And this, Christians oftentimes will mistakenly think Lord Jesus Christ is the supreme Lord, and somehow he died and defeated death by resurrecting. But the fact of God dying means that death is more powerful than God. So this is another erroneous philosophy that falls on this, hinges on this philosophy of God not being actually all-powerful. These people are actually atheists. They call themselves Christians or whatever, Hindus or whatever, but they're actually atheists. If they think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is ever under any kind of material energy or whatever it might be. Krishna is Vibhu, like I said, Vibhu. He is the complete controller of all six opulences. He is the most strong. There's no one stronger than him. Krishna consciousness. So does God become bewildered by nescience? If so, nescience or Satan is greater than God. Real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is in perfect Krishna consciousness. Therefore, one has to seek out such a bona fide spiritual master and under him learn what Krishna consciousness is. The spiritual master can drive away all nescience as the sun drives away darkness. Even though a person may be in full knowledge that he is not this body but is transcendental to the body, he still may not be able to discriminate between soul and supersoul. However, he can know everything well if he cares to take shelter of the perfect bona fide Krishna conscious spiritual master. So the analogy my dear spiritual master has made is that the material world is like a dark forest, and if you're up there in the forest and it's completely black out, you don't know which way you're going. You're looking at things thinking that they're animals, but they might be sticks, and you're bumping into things. You can't find your way around anywhere. But when the sun comes up, the holy names of Krishna comes. Krishna comes in the form of the spiritual master, the pure lover, and comes and brings you the absolute knowledge, the absolute truth. And just even before the sun is rising in the morning, pre-dawn, things start to light up. You can see things around, and then the sun comes up, and it's all this brilliance. Everything is lit up and glistening. It's wonderful, beautiful analogy. And this is what the spiritual master is. The spiritual master can drive away all nescience as the sun drives away darkness. Even though a person may be in full knowledge that he is not the body, but is transcendental to the body, he may not be able to discriminate between the soul and the supersoul. However, he can know everything well if he takes cares to take shelter of the perfect bona fide Krishna conscious spiritual master. So that's the spiritual master you must approach, because once you get past the identity, you wonder, you don't know, you can't differentiate whether I am the supreme whole or I'm just a servant of Krishna. One can know God and one's relationship with God only when one actually meets a representative of God. A representative of God never claims that he is God, although he is paid all respect ordinarily paid to God because he has knowledge of God. One has to learn the distinction between God and the living entity. Lord Sri Krishna therefore stated in the second chapter, chapter 2, verse 12, that every living being is individual, and that the Lord is also individual. They were all individuals in the past, they are individuals at present, and they will continue to be individuals in the future, even after liberation. At night we see everything as one in the darkness, but in the day when the sun is up, we see everything in its real identity. Identity with individuality and spiritual life is real knowledge. So, beautiful purport, beautiful verse. Text 17. Tad bujayas, tad atmanas, tanishtas, tat parayana, gachanti apunar avritim, gananil jutta kalmashaha, tad bujya, one whose intelligence is always in the Supreme. Tad atmana, one whose mind is always in the Supreme. Tat nishta, whose mind is only meant for the Supreme. Tat parayanaha, who has completely taken shelter of him. Gachanti, goes. Apunavritam, liberation. Jnana, knowledge. Nirduta, cleanses. Kalmashaha, misgivings. Translation: when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge. and thus proceed straight on the path of liberation. So this is achieved by our spiritual master when one's intelligence, mind, faith, refuge are all fixed in the Supreme. One becomes fully cleansed of all the misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. Notice the way to go. The Lord, the Supreme Spiritual Master, the pure devotee of Krishna, comes to us with the torchlight of knowledge, guides us out of the cave, shows us the way we need to go with the torchlight of knowledge. Purport: the supreme transcendental truth is Lord Krishna. The whole Bhagavad Gita centers around the declaration of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the version of all Vedic literature. Para Tattva means the supreme reality. Paramatma, who is understood by the knowers of the Supreme as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So the three forms of God realization: Brahman, the impersonal white light effulgence of the Supreme Lord; Paramatma, the expansion of Krishna into the hearts of all living entities, into the different atoms; and Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the last word in the Absolute. There is nothing more than that. The Lord says, Mataha Parataram Nanyat Kinchit Ashti Dhananjaya. Impersonal Brahman is also supported by Krishna. Brahmano Prashtita Panam. Therefore, in all ways, Krishna is the supreme reality, one whose mind, intelligence, faith, and refuge are always in Krishna. Or, in other words, one who is fully in Krishna consciousness is undoubtedly washed clean of all misgivings and is in perfect knowledge of everything concerning transcendence. A Krishna conscious person can thoroughly understand that there is duality, simultaneous identity, and individuality in Krishna. So there is duality in Krishna. And equipped with such transcendental knowledge, one can make steady progress on the path of liberation. Text 18. Vijaya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Sunnichaiva Svapakecha Pandita Samadarshina Vijaya, education. Vinaya, gentleness. Vinaya, that's a nice word. Sampanne, fully equipped. Brahmane, in the Brahmana. Gavi, in the cow. Hastini, in the elephant. Suni, in the dog. Cha, end. Eva, certainly. Svapake, in the dog eater, the outcast. Cha, respectively. Panditaha, those who are so wise. Sama darshinaha, do see with equal vision. Translation: the humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater outcast. So we have discussed that as we've read in the Sri Ishopanishad about the different kinds of levels of devotees. And the Uttama Adhikari is the pure devotee of Krishna, the highest level devotee who can seize all living entities as children of Krishna, despite their outer dress. Purport: a Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. The Brahmana and the outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog, a cow, or an elephant may be different from the point of view of species, but these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme, for the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion of Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. So Krishna is present within all living beings, next to the spirit soul, the Jivatma, in the body of that fly, the plant, the body of the plant, the body of the tiger, the body of the demigod, the body of the human. And the devotee of Krishna sees these. As far as bodies are concerned in different castes or species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahmana, although the body of the Brahmana and that of the outcast are not the same. The bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and the supersoul within the body are of the same spiritual quality. The similarity in the quality of the soul and the supersoul, however, does not make them equal in quantity, for the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he is truly learned and has equal vision. A similar characteristic of the soul and the supersoul that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the supersoul is conscious of all the bodies. The supersoul is present in all bodies without distinction. So that shows the difference between the living entity, minutely small, only within the consciousness of their body, whereas the Supreme Lord is present within all bodies, can see everything. And I've met impersonalists who are like trying to give me these examples of meditations where you're supposed to expand yourself past your body, and I said that's just a mental trick. He got upset when he said that. I said that you're not really expanding outside your body, you're just using some mental gymnastics to imagine, just like you imagine unicorns and dragons, but they're not really real. You can imagine yourself expanding outside of your body into everything else and merging with everything else, but that doesn't mean you're really doing that. Here it's said by Bhaktivedanta that you are limited within the present body that you're in. Now, the subtle body, it does kind of extend outside of your body a little bit, but it doesn't mean it merges all into my cat here and the guitar and the poster and the walls and everything like that. You can imagine that. You can easily do mind gymnastics to imagine that, but that doesn't mean it's really happening. It's not happening. It's just all fantasy. So, and I got him angry because I said, well, who's really getting angry? If we're all God, then is it me getting angry or you? I mess with impersonalists like that. Ihaiva taya jitaha sargo yesham shamye stitam manaha nirdosam hi shamam brahma tasmad brahmani te stitaha iha in this life eva certainly tahi by them jitaha conquered sarga birth and death yesham of those samye in equanimity Stitam so situated, mana mind, nirdosam flawless, he certainly, samam in equanimity, Brahma the supreme, tasmad therefore, Brahmani in the supreme, te they, stita are situated. Translation, text 19. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. Equanimity of mind, as mentioned above, is a sign of self-realization. So the mind is balanced. We're not following that seesaw up and down. Well, you're up here, now you're sad, now you're happy, now you're sad. It's like we stay equanimity. Think about Krishna and our happiness and in our distress, Things happen, I had to go to the emergency room yesterday because I was having heart palpitations, which turned out to be not a heart attack, but actually a panic attack. And, I just was remembering Krishna, okay? Krishna, I don't really have much power here. I'm completely powerless in this situation. And I take shelter of you. And it was actually very peaceful, I thought, I could have been about to have a heart attack or, maybe it's something serious. And this is just what happens with the body, last year I just went through radiation of stage 2 cancer. I had gotten cancer in my prostate, and had to deal with that. You don't really have much control over things. You just have to always take shelter of Krishna in happiness and distress. Equanimity, okay, so this is a sign of self-realization. Those who have actually attained to such a stage should be considered to have conquered material conditions, specifically birth and death. As long as one identifies with this body, he is considered a conditioned soul, but as soon as he is elevated to the stage of equanimity, through realization of self, he is liberated from conditional life. In other words, he is no longer subject to take birth in the material world, but can enter into the spiritual sky after his death. The Lord is flawless because he is without attraction or hatred. Krishna is not partial to this or that, Similarly, when a living entity is without attraction or hatred, he also becomes flawless and eligible to enter into the spiritual sky. So good things happen, that's Krishna's mercy. Bad things happen, that's Krishna's mercy. Such persons are to be considered already liberated, and their symptoms are described below. Text 20. Na prashiyat priyam prapya na no divyajat prapya cha priyam stira buddhir asamudyo brahma vid brahmanistita na never prarishyat rejoice priyam pleasant prapya achieving na does not udvijat agitated prapya obtaining cha also apriyam unpleasant stira buddhi self-intelligence ashamudya unbewildered brahmavit one who knows the Supreme perfectly brahmani in the transcendence sthita situated. Translation: a person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, bewildered, and who knows the science of God, is to be understood as already situated in transcendence. So once again, taking from my spiritual master's analogy of the seesaw, what comes up will go down. What goes up must come down. What's that song? What goes down must come up. It's like, it goes like that. It's like, the kids say, 6, 7. Whatever. This or that. It could be this or that. But, it's not even this or that. It's just what is. It is what is. And if we're not attached, we're not like, whoa, yeah, right on. This is a great, exciting, tasty food. Or I got that job. And you're just trying to milk that. It's like, yay, okay, that's good. Then it's like something bad happens. It's temporary. Those things are temporary. And you don't need to become attached to them because it's all material. And you're just riding through life, heading back to Krishna, keeping Krishna as a goal. Krishna is the reality. Purport: the symptoms of the self-realized person are given herein. The first symptom is that he is not illusioned by the false identification of the body with his true self. He knows perfectly well that he is not this body, but is the fragmental portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is therefore not joyful in achieving something, nor does he lament in losing anything which is related to his body. So Krishna is making this point to Arjuna about the people on the battlefield, the people who are going to die. The steadiness of mind is called sthira buddhi, or self-intelligence. He is therefore never bewildered by mistaking the gross body for the soul, nor does he accept the body as permanent and disregard the existence of the soul. This knowledge elevates him to the station of knowing the complete science of the Absolute Truth, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. He thus knows his constitutional position perfectly well without falsely trying to become one with the Supreme in all respects. This is called Brahman realization, or self-realization. Such steady consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. Text 21. Bahasparsheve shashak tatma vindati atmani yat sukam sabrama yoga yuktatma sukam akshayam ashnute bhayasparsheshu. In external sense pleasure, ashakta atma, one who is not so attached. Vindati, enjoys. Atmani, in the self. Yat, that which. Sukam, happiness. Saha, that. Brahma yoga, concentrated in Brahman. Yukta atma, self-connected. Shukyam, happiness. Akshayam, unlimited. Ishnute, enjoys. Translation. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure or external objects, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. That is the peace that one feels. They're not attaching themselves to the things in the material world that will bring them unhappiness. They are attached to Krishna, which is the source of all happiness. Sri Ramanujacharya, great devotee in Krishna consciousness, said, Yadavati mama cheta ha Krishna padara vinde navanava rasha dharman nudyate rantum asit tadavadi badbata nari sangayam smaryam mane Bhavati mukya vikaraha sushtu nishti vananam cha. Since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sense pleasure, I spit at the thought. And my lips curl with distaste. Yeah, because he gives a higher taste, right? A person in Brahma Yoga, or Krishna consciousness, is so absorbed in the loving service of the Lord that he loses his taste for material sense pleasure altogether. The highest pleasure in terms of matter is sex pleasure. The whole world is moving under its spell, and a materialist cannot work. A materialist cannot work at all without this motivation. But a person engaged in Krishna consciousness can work with greater vigor without sex pleasure, which he avoids. The mode of passion, very, very strong in this material world. That is the test in spiritual realization. Spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. A Krishna conscious person is not attracted to any kind of sense pleasure due to his being a liberated soul. Okay, text 22. Yehi shamspara shaja boja dukya yonaya devate adi anta vantaha kanteya nateshu ramante budyaha. Ye, those, he, certainly, shamspara shaja, by contact with the material senses, boja, enjoyment, dukya, distress, yona yaha, sources of, eva, certainly, te, they are, adi, in the beginning, anta vantaha, subject to, kanteya, O son of Kunti, na, never, teshu, in those, ramate, take delight, bujaha, the intelligent. Translation. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to the contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. So the wise man understands there is a beginning and an end to all material enjoyment. So why bother taking so much trouble trying to pursue madly, endlessly, these things that we have a beginning and an end, that are temporary. And because they're temporary, we have to eventually give them up or lose them. Purport: material sense pleasure are due to the contact of the material senses, which are all temporary because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? In the Padma Purana it is said, Ramante yogino nante satyanana nanda chid atmani iti rama padesh de denashao param brahma bhijyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth, and therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also said, Nayam deho deha bhajam niryoke na kashtan kama narthate vid bhujam ye tapo divam putraka yena satvam Shudyad Yashmad Brahma Sakyam Tvantam Antanatam. My dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in this human form of life. Such pleasures are available to the stool eaters, hogs. Rather, my spiritual master would make this story about when he was in India. You would have to, they would tell you, take a big stick when you go out to take a dump out. They used to go out to the bathroom. You'd have to go out into the forest to go to the bathroom, but then these great big bush pigs would come along and they would knock you over to eat your stool because it's fresh and warm. And they want to eat it. So there is pleasure for those living entities in the bodies of those hogs. Rather, you should undergo penances in this life by which your existence will be purified, and as a result you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 1st verse. Therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Great. So we'll end it there tonight. Thank you very much. We'll finish up this chapter next time. Haribol.